through, last meetings, I noticed that I made the motion for just about every approval. So Jim, it's your turn this time, okay? I'll second it, but.
I will go back and forth this time. It's always
Okay,
funny when you have a small, and Lawrence can approve as well, I believe, right? Michael, yeah.
Yeah, great.
An interesting document I downloaded from academia. It was a research project done by seniors housing providers in Calgary on mental health providers. Like they're trying to develop an on-site kind of service provision. And one of the problems they had with mental health service provision was that they were all very competent with mental health, but very few were comfortable with serving the geriatric community.
Interesting. Oh, that would be great to share
lacking in knowledge of the geriatric community. So
I'd love to see. I'd love to see that.
Watch out for that to ensure that both things are there.
All right.
Oh, there we go. There's Councillor Fletcher. Excellent. So I think we are live streaming now.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome.
I can't stay the whole time, so if we have any quorum issues, I'll just advise you in case we want to bring certain things up to the forefront.
Okay, I'll get my team to keep that in mind as we're moving through. So I think we are live streaming, so I would like to welcome everyone. And before we actually go to our formal agenda, I'd like to take a moment to do the land acknowledgement. So we acknowledge the land that we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. We are all treaty people. Many of us, including myself, has come as settlers, immigrants, newcomers in this generation or generations past. We would also like to acknowledge those who came here forcibly, particularly as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. Therefore, we honor and pay tribute to the ancestors of African origin and descent. So welcome, everyone. I'm going to start with just a few remarks. I think that we're one of the first committees to meet following the really fantastic announcement last week that we do have a new CEO. His name is Tom Hunter, and I look forward to, and I'm sure all of you look forward to him joining us officially on May 16th. And if anybody's wondering, he's not related to Tommy Hunter. And if you don't know who Tommy Hunter is, you're not as old as I am.
Shame.
So that rumor had to be squashed because I'm sure he's going to be asked that a lot. But we're really excited, nonetheless, with this Tom Hunter joining us, and he comes with a particularly strong background both in housing and in healthcare. So we're looking forward to it, and I'd like to thank everybody who was involved in supporting the recruitment. So it's getting real. At today's meeting, I also would like to talk a little bit about the great opportunity that myself and Carrie and others, Arlene has been there, and many other team members in attending the STAC meetings. And it's been great to actually see how hard this group is working on in meeting with key people within the seniors housing unit at TCHC and the city, working on important issues, including processes for accessing space in buildings, which is actually a really important piece of work. We are looking forward to some recommendations coming on the tenant engagement system in June. We want that it's hard to believe that we still are actually not a corporation. We're actually, our go live date is in June. So we will continue the work with STAC because I think that there's going to be many important discussions. So that will be the focus of our June meeting. And if Stack needs a little bit more time, then we will find a meeting time after that. And before now, and I would also like to thank all of the transition team members. Our packages are a reflection of just the amount of work that it takes to actually become Toronto Seniors Corporation. And today's meeting is particularly focused on that. I do want to say in advance that many of these policies, which are foundational policies, will need more work, and we will need more time. But we do think that it's very important to have policies in place, and want to make sure that we have those. But I do want to assure anyone that is wondering that these policies will have an opportunity to come up to the top, float up to the top, the policies that need to actually be refined, particularly in line with our new corporation and the values that we'll all develop together. And that does require engagement. For me, that's actually going to be the piece of work that we're going to be doing from now until forever, in terms of actually working with one another to actually make sure that policies and processes are in place. We also know that some of the performance metrics that we're working with are foundational. They're beginning. We don't actually have everything in place, and we will continue to work hard to do that. I'm particularly interested in us actually looking at the integrated service model. I think the more that we actually review these documents and talk about the work that has already been undertaken, the more we will actually understand what's in place and the work that lays ahead of us. So we're getting closer to that June date. And once again, I just want to thank everybody for all the work that it takes to actually to get to that point. But it does feel like it's we're getting closer. So I'm going to stop at that point, and just actually take a moment to ask if people are looking for an approval for the public meeting agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher, and a seconder, Jim.
Yeah.
Thank you. Terrific. And all in favor? We have a small but mighty committee, so we're going to be going back and forth. I'm going to ask at this point if any of our members have a conflict of interest. Hearing none, we will move to the approval of the minutes of our first meeting that was held on March 8th. So if I could, I think Councillor Fletcher was not there, but others on the line were. If I could have any changes to the minutes or an approval of the minutes of March 8th. Jim, Carrie, Lawrence, do they look okay to you?
Yeah,
Look okay.
absolutely.
Great.
Yeah.
So Jim, can I get you to approve, and I'll get Carrie to second?
Yeah,
Thank you. All in favor?
Second.
Thank you. And we also had a closed session with some HR updates, and if I can also have an approval of the minutes of the closed session, which was on March 8th.
So moved.
So moved, and a seconder, Jim, all in favor? So carried. And we do have the action item review, and I want to thank you for capturing those. Any concerns or questions about the action items that we're trying to stay on top of?
Yeah.
Carrie.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you
Carrie's jumped in. I'm follow you.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
okay. Yeah, it's regarding the all of the material that was provided with the tenant engagement positions, committees by group, by area. I wish we would stop referring to them as tenant elections, because they aren't.
Okay.
They were there was a selection between a committee or an individual rep.
Yep.
It was not an election, and the people were not elected. So it's
Okay.
when I see it under our letterhead, it's under our banner, it grates.
Okay. What would you suggest that we change it to, Carrie?
Building representatives, tenant rep volunteers, It could be mentioned that they were acclaimed building representatives, but they were not elected.
I
Okay,
think it should be TCHC's tenant engagement system.
Okay.
Because it not be ours. This, we changed the name of theirs. But
Yep.
I do agree with Carrie that we need to minute very clearly that we
Yep.
do that these were, that it's not elections in the spirit of the word that we would all understand it. And I think I'd probably understand that better than everybody else since I go for 4 years.
does that wording work for you, Councillor Fletcher?
Which one?
I think, what did you recommend, Carrie? I'm just looking at it myself.
Tenant building representatives, or yeah, I'd like something that covers everything. Building representatives, tenant representative volunteers. I know there were 1 or 2 instances in the 300 where there was an election, but building representatives.
Okay, okay,
Can I just say, please, that I think I'd just like to move that we receive the information from TCHC about their current tenant engagement system. That would be the first thing. And that
okay. Yeah,
because it's theirs and
Yeah.
that,
that's what I was wondering. Yeah,
and there's something here of all the positions that are open, there's over 40% of these positions are still open. I've just gone through that. So I think that we are going to embark on a review that, and so it would say that after June 1st, that Seniors Corporation review the tenant engagement system, continue to review. Well, is the staff not reviewing that, Linda, or not?
yeah, they're coming back in June to report on that.
Okay, so thank you very much. That is their tenant engagement system. And we await the stack version. And honestly, it says Miss Penny provided the documentation. This is documentation actually from the board of directors from TCHC. So it's been forwarded.
So we can alter that too.
It's forwarded from the board to
Right.
the board. And then I think there's any issues that we'd like to say about it, noting that there's a lot of vacancies. And I'd like
Right.
verified through Michael or Arlene that they have stopped their current system of filling these roles.
I can respond to that.
Yeah, go ahead, Arlene.
Yes. They have actually paused any further engagement work pending the move of SHU and those tenant reps into Toronto Seniors Housing. That work has been paused to the best of my knowledge.
So I think we'll also request the pause.
Yeah.
Formally, I don't think we requested that pause, did we? Did we?
Not,
They
they're
have
not,
paused.
it's not currently under our control, so
Yeah.
there's no.
Yeah, but it will be coming to us, so thank
Yeah.
you, or we can thank them for the pause, but noting that there's a pause and that advise them that in June, the stack will be coming forward to our board with suggestions on tenant engagement. I think it's important that goes back because this technically is the board, THC through to our board.
So I
Yeah.
think it's clear that these are TCHC documents. They aren't our documents, and we will be changing the language accordingly. Carrie, and it's so great that you're actually working so closely with SAC, and that you're part of those discussions. I think you're attending meetings every week, many
Yeah.
meetings. So
Yeah.
this was documentation from TCHC.
I guess since we're talking about shared services and everything else, I know they're not our documents or our program, but technically it's a TCHC program that would be transferred.
Yes,
I think the message,
it's paused.
we're not taking your transfer, we're pausing it because we're going to review it. And I don't know if that's articulated or not, Michael, from this court back, has it, or Arlene directly back
That's what,
to the other court?
that's why they've paused it. because of the actually the direction from the city that it be paused. The stack is going to make recommendations, and as a result of that, Toronto Community Housing have paused.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay.
Just one other point on that. Sorry to belabor this, but I think the sentiment that's coming out of STAC is that there is absolutely no need to replace the current tenant reps, that these people have volunteered, they've got some enthusiasm for this, so we certainly don't want to, quash that. But I would ask if we could make a request that that TCHC Engagement is working on the list of names of reps for us. We understand, and I understand now, Michael, they aren't our tenants. We can't get the names now, but could that be worked on so that come June 1st, we have it? And that then it doesn't take, at that date, it doesn't take a month or 6 weeks to get it, because many of the active STAC members are looking forward, going building to building to engage with these volunteer reps to see what can be built. So if that request can get through, that would be great.
We'll have that list on June 1st.
And we can add
wonderful.
that to our action list from this meeting, Carrie, because I mean, really, this agenda item is our action item that we documented from last. It's great that you're clarifying it, and not actually.
That's great.
Right. So we'll add that to the action item for this meeting.
So not only will
Perfect.
the tenants be coming over, but the names of all the tenant reps selected in whatever manner will also be coming. And you're confirming that, Michael, that will be part of.
We'll add that to the actions.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank
Great. Thank you.
All right. So with that, is there anything else from the action item review?
No.
All right. So I think, do we need an approve? I think that's just for information. So we're going to move to and I want to reinforce again when we move into number 7, which is actually, I think we have 2 deputations for number 7. So should we start with the deputations? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have 2 deputations, Maureen and Bill, and I did want to just remind people that I said in the opening remarks that we do know actually that many of these policies, it was a heft package, and you were kind, Carrie, in terms of actually giving credit to the size of the board package. This board package actually exceeded what you should get as a board, and on this one, I was kind of glad that it was coming through a computer file and not on paper for the environment, but we do actually owe it to our organization to have some foundational policies in place, but we know that we need to do a significant amount of work. That this is just the beginning. But why don't we start? Is it Maureen first that's up?
Maureen, go ahead.
Welcome.
Hi,
Maureen.
everyone, and thank you for giving me a few minutes today. And Linda, thank you to you for reinforcing twice now that these are simply foundational policies, because this is what I wanted to speak to. Basically, what I have is I would like to request something just to strengthen your comments, and ask that rather than these simply be approved, which they're on the agenda to be done today, that rather than putting them down as approved, that they somehow be flagged or indicated or marked that they are received for information, but will be refined and not currently approved. I think there's going to be so many things that still have to be looked at after June 1st. And I would like, when our new executive team comes on board, for them to realize that this is not something that has just gone through. It's something that needs to be looked at very quickly. So that's what I'm asking for today, some type of flag in the documentation or in the records that it's received for information or not approved. And that's all I have to ask for today. Thank you.
Thanks, Maureen. I think Councillor Fletcher, you have your hand up.
Is there, I'm not sure if we have to technically have these approved, or whether or not, Madam Chair, they could just be approved in principle, which means they're still a working document.
I was wondering about the wording as well. I think legally we need to have some policies in place. I will let Bill speak as well, but Mary, do you have any comments, or Michael, in terms of a way? I think that we actually are in agreement with you, Maureen, that that all the policies require a deeper dive, and it would be very interesting to get some perspective from Stack and others on the policies that you would like us to actually prioritize as well, since they've gone out. But Michael or Mary, do you have any thoughts?
Yes, I mean, we could hear Bill first and maybe deal with all of the issues associated, and then maybe Mary and I can make a few comments.
Okay, great. And I'll pass it over to Bill. It's always nice to hear from you too, Bill. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, members. And hi, Nancy. Haven't seen you in a long time. I'm very pleased, like Maureen, to hear that we're looking at these policies and recognizing that they need a lot of work. Not one of these policies that's before you has been through the rigor of tenant scrutiny. There's been no access, input, or influence, as you know, has been mandated, and that shutout still continues to Stack members in that regard. But on a positive note, we have been starting to make some efforts in the Stack towards putting the engagement model ideas together. And there's a new person, Joy Conley, who is starting to work with this on, you know, to try to flesh that out a little bit. And in regards to the list of names of the tenant leaders, I requested that list a long, long time ago, and actually had a meeting on December 20 with Jag Sharma, Grant Coffey, and Paula Knight. And I was promised at that meeting that I would be given that list. And here we are, and you still don't have that list. And it really is affecting our ability to be able to start opening things up and getting seniors, leaders involved. And so I'm glad to hear that everything is moving forward, and that I'm looking forward to the work, but I have to say I'm very tired. So thank you all for your efforts, and especially you, Councillor Fletcher. And that's about it for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. And so we will make sure that we get that information about the tenant list and names. And if there's any way that we could actually circle back on that sooner than later, that would be great, in terms of any issues in terms of us actually getting access to that. With regards to the policies, I think we're all saying the same thing, that that these policies do need to have the seniors corporation housing lens, and that they do need tenant engagement. Is there a way that we could actually approve in principle? Mary and Michael, any thoughts?
I'll make a comment, and Mary may want to weigh in as well. Our feeling is that we do need a set of approved policies on June 1st. We recognize, and I think the staff in the seniors housing unit at Toronto Community Housing recognize, that these policies do need, many of them, a lot of work, so that they're fit for purpose for the purpose of the new corporation, which is to support seniors housing. So that's going to take review. It's going to take engagement with tenants on the best course forward with respect to these policies. But we do need them in place on June 1st, because many of them are linked to processes that are business processes, and are going to be important business processes for the new corporation. And so we do recommend that the board and through this committee do approve these policies to be in force on June 1st, and then obviously do the work then to review them and refine them for the future. Mary?
So, yes, I agree completely. I think what the committee might consider is approving them as interim policies. So it gives
Yeah.
a clear message that that's to get us through. And then I think you could add to the recommendation something along the lines that these policies be reviewed to reflect the needs of seniors and Toronto Senior Housing Corporation's mandate and values, and that this review be done with input or consultation, engagement of tenants and staff. And if you added that to the recommendation, then I think you would cover off the concerns that we all have about these policies. So that would be my suggestion.
I see Carrie nodding, and Jim, do you think that that would work as well? I'm feeling comfortable with that that plan. And I like the wording in terms of that they would be reviewed with tenants and staff. It would be interesting to even think about prioritizing them with, you know, kind of because you've been looking at them, Mary, kind of like chunking them out in terms of some potential, like, you know, timeframes. You know, I've done that before with policies where, you know, that they, you know, some are actually more timely than that time sensitive than others. Any thoughts, Carrie or Jim or Lawrence?
Yeah, I love the I love approving as interim. The non-residential use of space is the big issue right
Yeah.
now with tenants. As we've been assured that any contracts will be short so that everything can be looked at. But many engaged tenants are concerned about new programs slipping through, being rubber stamped when they haven't been approved. So that I think is one of the biggest issues right now.
So we could keep an eye on these. I think that what we're willing to do as a committee is have some oversight to these tenant facing policies. And
Yeah.
perhaps actually at each of our meetings, we could do just an update in terms of anything that's moving forward. And I agree with you, Carrie, and I'm glad that we already have some stack engagement on the use of space. And perhaps that's one that's actually going to be, you know, updated sooner than later. Jim, were you okay with that too, in terms of that plan? Great. So I'm wondering, Carrie, would you be willing, is there anything else you wanted to, any more comments that you wanted to make, Mary, in terms of these policies? And maybe we can actually just confirm the wording for the motion.
I don't have anything more unless committee members have specific comments on the individual policies. Doesn't seem to be that that's the issue today. And just in terms of wording, I think that what I said was that the committee approves these policies as interim policies and recommends that the board that they be approved by the board as interim policies, and that there's a motion or a further part of the motion that says that these policies will be reviewed to reflect the needs of seniors and in consultation or with the engagement of tenants and staff. And if you wanted to add, and that staff will bring forward for review by stack the order or the priorities in which this review might take place. So something along those lines.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Did you capture that, Arlene?
Yeah.
Thank you. So
Yeah.
are you good with approving that with that motion, Carrie? Because
Absolutely. Yeah.
And a seconder,
Yeah, absolutely.
Jim. Great. All in favor? Great. So our commitment to these policies and moving forward. And yeah, I think there's just too many, and to actually get into the details of each of the policies does not seem like it would be warranted. And will this go to the board for then approval as well? Is that just a point of order? So I think that the wording will be important in terms of that, and that this does not preclude work happening already on some of the policies. So the more important policies and Bill and Maureen, if you're actually, still listening, and I know you are, if there's other policies you think that we should actually be fast tracking, we're always open to your feedback. So terrific. Thank you. So
They
we're going
both
to.
have left. Sorry, they both have
Oh,
left.
that's okay. You know what? They probably are still watching the live stream because so we'll follow up with them. Okay, so let's move on to item 8, which is the ISM annual report. And Michael, I think you're going to actually give us an update on this. And thank you. The handouts were very detailed on the ISM.
Yes, thank you, Linda. I'd just like to introduce Wendy Dobson from Toronto Community Housing, who's been the leader behind the integrated service model implementation and this report. And we've brought this to this committee for information. We think it's important. Obviously, this is going to be a central part of the new corporation's work, is the continuing implementation and seeing the benefits of the service model in place. So the report is there for your information, and we recommend that you approve this going to the board for information. And Wendy's here, as you can see, it's quite a detailed report, and Wendy's here to answer any questions that you might have on the report. But hopefully very useful information for the committee and the board, as we'll look at later. This is going to be a key part of our regular reporting to the board through this committee on the ISM implementation going forward. Make any comments before we open it?
Wendy, did you want to comment anything before I?
No, I'll leave it to whatever questions you guys have. That way we have as much time as you need, hopefully.
Councillor Fletcher, I saw your hand up.
A couple of questions that appeared to be around the hubs. That was what was said about 145 Strathmore wasn't quite correct. Do we agree on that?
You want to say what it was that was incorrect?
That just apparently that everything was great and that the provider had gone door to door and got all the, didn't mention the fact that the tenants had an uprising.
Yeah.
And it was put on hold as well. When did you want to comment on that?
Well, I think we do mention that, you know, there were concerns by tenants, and that is actually exactly why it got paused, because tenants did bring forward their concerns, and they were certainly clear and substantial, and so that's why we paused them, to make sure we could address those before we move forward. And with the consultations, they're not even calling it hubs anymore; they're calling it an initiative, health and wellness initiative. Because we don't even know if it will be a hub model. It depends what the tenants really identify as how to best receive those kind of health and wellness services to address their needs, and that may not be a hub model anymore. So that's what we're trying to find out.
I'm not sure that what was clear is that 145 Strathmore was removed by City Council for consideration. I didn't find that.
Just for clarification, this is a Toronto Community Housing document.
I understand, but it's come to us and it's going to our board, and I'm questioning.
We actually on page 28, we do say under council direction that 145 Strathmore Boulevard was removed from consideration as a hub. We actually, I think, took that language exactly from the members' motion.
Okay, thank you. Michael, if we're not to discuss it, then we shouldn't have it here. Let me just.
No, I was just trying to clarify, we're not here to.
Well, no, we're clarifying because this will be a document that gets transferred to the new corporation. Because
right, but it's already, as I understand it, has already gone to the Toronto. It's going through the Toronto Community Housing Board.
Information, then that's fine.
Yeah.
Discussion. If it's not our document, we'll receive it for information. But I would certainly like to clarify, what's the role of the city in ISM? I thought that the city seniors were overseeing about ISM. Am I wrong?
Yeah, we report, for example, this report actually is written as part of the accountability framework for senior services and long-term care. So we meet with them monthly, we provide them our key performance indicators monthly, and then this annual report is all part of our reporting to senior services and long-term care. So they're the ones who oversee the project. We also provide dashboards and stay in contact with the Tenants First team as well to make sure we're meeting all of our requirements, and where there's issues, you know, how we're addressing them and things like that.
You know, I'm just going to suggest, Linda, that it might be helpful to have, since this report is information, I don't think we know that this is being done at the other corporation, but that it's overseen by the city's seniors division. and they're watching very closely, and that will transfer over to the Seniors Corporation when this takes on. So it might be helpful actually to have somebody come to the board meeting to explain what their role is.
The city's role.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually personally, I actually spent a lot of time looking at this report in detail. I actually found it very helpful because I have personally found it challenging to figure out all of the accountabilities on this, and it was helpful for me to actually see that the role that the city is playing and where it's going. It is complex though, and I guess what you're saying though is that if the report is already has already gone to TCHC, we probably aren't actually approving it, Michael. That probably is a good point.
We just received.
It's received for information.
Yeah. What I want to say is that it's great that's there, and I think it would be helpful to have the seniors folks, whether they come after our new CEO is there,
Sure.
still there, to explain what their role will be
Sure.
within the ISM. And I think we should put that on an agenda quite directly. So
Yep.
we're on that, Linda, and that's fine.
Yep, I see nods, and I think that that's actually a really good agreement. The more clarity we can get on it's complex in terms of the role of the Seniors Corporation. The TCHC will actually have less of a role, I think, with this one, but the city and long-term care and all of those pieces. So hear you, Paula, and I think that that's a great suggestion to bring forward.
Well, just for information, and I'll ask that to the board, that the appropriate city staff be invited to address the board on the ISM and what their role will be with our new corporation, because we're unclear. That'd be good.
And Carrie or Jim, did you have any reflections or
Yeah,
comments?
no, totally agree.
I just think
Totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a really good idea to do that.
Yeah, you found the same thing. It does clarify a little bit more of the role. So, is there anything else that we should know in the transition, Wendy, as this is moving forward? Is there anything that this committee should be thinking about as we kind of progress to June with this report? And what are your thoughts?
Yeah, there's a couple of things I think. My understanding is that basically TCHC was implementing the ISM and was reporting to Senior Services and Long-Term Care. And when it transitions to the new corporation, that responsibility transfers to the corporation, but they would still report to Senior Services and Long-Term Care. I welcome bringing them into the conversation, however, to make sure we're all on the same page. They are also working, I meant to bring this up, they are also working, Senior Services and Long-Term Care, on an evaluation of the ISM. So they're using our report and they're meeting with staff and tenants and things like that to come up with their own evaluation that's independent of our report, obviously informed partly by our report, but to make sure that from an evaluation perspective, they've got a very comprehensive approach as well. And I think they'll be examining the accountability framework to see how that works. We have a number of key performance indicators that we're also reviewing to see what the ideal ones are with moving into the new corporation. As we set up the new technology, there may be opportunities to change how we collect data. I think that's a long-term thing. That's not a June 1st thing for sure. But certainly that's something we're looking at. And I think this board would be great to look at to see how to best collect the data to really show the outcomes of the integrated service model. Yeah, so those will be my comments. And something that wasn't brought up is we're also going to be meeting with the Senior Tenants Advisory Committee again to get further input on this, so how we can improve our report for next time as well, because we understand there were still some things that they were not comfortable with, and we want to make sure that we keep improving and reflect what tenants need and want in these reports.
Yeah, that would be something that I think would be, I know would be of interest to our committee as well, to make sure that we're getting closer to that. And so you've touched a little bit. So I think so at this point for agenda item 8, we're looking for just an approval for information on, we've received the ISM annual report. We will actually follow up with having somebody from the city come to a future meeting. This is also going to the board as well, I understand, and is central to the new model. And I'm sure will land very quickly on our new CEO's desk, because this is actually a really important piece. And this also aligns with the Health Commons presentation that we had last meeting on the initiative that's not the wellness initiative, as opposed to a hub, and those models that we're getting input from tenants on right now. So I think we're just actually asking for approval for information on this item. Jim, are you okay to approve for information?
Yeah, I'm
And
I
Carrie?
approve.
Sure.
Thank you. All in favor? Oh, well, now, next time I'll get Councillor Fletcher to approve. Thank you. So I think we were also, you touched a little bit, Wendy, on the performance measures. So the next section is around how we're going to actually capture our operational performance measures. Do you want to speak to this, Michael?
Yeah, we're actually going to have a motion to move into closed session, but I just wanted to introduce it here in open session, that we're going to look at a set of indicators and reports that can form the basis, at least of the start, for the new corporation, of looking at the business of the corporation in supporting seniors. And it's going to have three components. One is an operational performance report. One is a regular report on the implementation of the integrated service model. And a third component, which we'll be bringing back, is on early priorities for the new corporation. So Brad and Wendy are going to stay with us going into closed session, so we can talk about some of these issues. The reason we're going into closed session is because the reports that we're recommending are a mixture of reports that are currently public at Toronto Community Housing, and some reports that are management reports that are not public. So to respect the level of and the public nature or not public nature of this reports, we're going to go into camera at this point to look at these reports. I'm assuming that the board will want to make performance reports going forward once we're operational on June 1st public. But that's a decision we can take once we become operational on June 1st.
Question. Michael, are public reports already?
Pardon me?
Are these public reports already?
Some of them are not.
And some of them are?
Well, we've created an amalgam of a report that combines some information that's public and some information that's not. And so this is what we're recommending, and we were going to discuss in closed session. And because it contains data and information that's not public currently at Toronto Community Housing, we need to go into closed session to discuss it.
Well, I guess I'm just going, I don't want to be difficult, but if there's public information about performance standards at Toronto Community Housing, I think technically that should be public information here at this corporation, because it's publicly available and it should be tabled here as information. And then if there's confidential information that you have that's not public, that should be tabled confidentially. But I don't believe we can actually, I'm a little concerned about it, this
So
process.
we did that, Councillor Fletcher, at the last meeting.
Oh, maybe I was.
Yeah, we looked at the public reports, and we looked at the not public reports in closed session at the last meeting.
We looked at the public in the closed session of the last meeting?
No, we looked at the public reports in public session, and we looked at the closed.
So this,
and then it was this committee's ask that we put together a starting performance report for the new corporation. That's in a form that combines the two sets of data together into one presentation, and that's why. But this committee has seen the public reports. Those are public at Toronto Community Housing and are available.
so I'll just say that I think that anything as how we might be wanting to report publicly is actually a public discussion, because those who follow us quite closely, and we do have quite a few fans, may want to comment on it. So I'm just not sure that we should be doing it in this way. I wish to say that.
Thank you
In
for
that
your
case, we
for your
can't,
comments.
if we can't do that today because we don't have permission from Toronto Community Housing to make that data public.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about if we have a template that's we're planning to use for public reporting,
Yes.
that is a public report. That's a public compared to what we might say we would use. It's a template. So I'm just very careful that we don't do things in camera or in private that tenants might be interested in and having a look at or commenting or giving us their best advice, and that it's a public process. If there may be things that are quite private and that they're, so I'm concerned about putting them all together, Madam Chair, in that
Thank
way.
you. Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. I think at this point we can't actually untangle them for this meeting, but you have my commitment and the tenants have my commitment that when we are meeting as a new corporation, that they will be our documents, and we will ensure that that more of our items are actually in public. This is only our second meeting, so we're just getting our moving forward. But I think at this point I would ask your permission if we can go into closed session. And as I said, June will bring a new era up. That they will be our documents. Can I have an approval to go into closed session? Jim, seconder, Carrie, all in favor? Thank you.
There we are.
There we are. And can you put that back up, Rajni, where you were on page 280?
1 second, Michael. I'm still not live.
Oh, sorry. It says on my thing.
Yeah, it's right now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I'll share the document.
And I assume that we're live now.
We are.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for staying with us, and we're back, and we're at the last item of our business, section number 14, approval of the motions. We met as a board to review some performance indicators and data, some of which is not our data, and it was data that is actually TCHC data. And had a good conversation about going forward with some metrics that we would want to be reviewing on a regular basis. And we will make every effort to make sure that the performance indicators that we're looking at are those are in those areas that matter most to tenants. So there's some good work ahead of us. So at this point, there is a motion on the table. Be it resolved that the Quality and Tenant Engagement Committee approve the performance reports appended to the package, and subsequently recommend approval of those reports to the Board of Directors. And they were related to corporate key quality performance indicators and the integrated service management system reporting indicators. I will move that, and I'm looking for a seconder. Terry, thank you for seconding. All in favor? And we will approve that. Thank you. And as mentioned before we went into camera, we do expect in the future that performance reporting will very much be part of our public domain. And we're very much looking forward to our next meeting, which will be in June when we go live. And we're looking forward at that meeting to have a report from STAC on the recommendations for our tenant engagement system. Is there any other business items or comments going forward? Well, with that, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our partners at TCHC, the city, our transition team, and board members for a lot of work that has occurred in this year. It's only April, and I look forward to our next meeting. And at that, I'm going to look for an approval to adjourn. Jim, do you want to approve this one? And seconded by Carrie, all in favor?
Sure.
Terrific. So thank you very much, and I hope everybody has a good evening and gets some sunshine.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.